Good afternoon. A thank you certainly to Cisco and to Oslo Technopole for the opportunity for all of us to come to this beautiful city. And for me, once again, the opportunity to come and to talk to you about the issue of collaboration. I'm coming to Oslo from a recent trip to London. And while in London, reading the news media there, the newspapers, the television, it was quite obvious that the issue of the economy is very much on the minds of the world. And while in London, it reminded me of the Charles Dickens novel, The Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Well, certainly, these are the worst of times economically that any of us have probably experienced in our lives. But they are also certainly the best of times for creativity, for ingenuity, to address those economic problems as well as the many other problems that afflict the world. What I'd like to do with you this afternoon in the time allotted to me is to speak to you about a way forward, about that use of ingenuity and creativity and around the theme of collaboration. When he accepted the Nobel Peace Prize in 1987, Oscar Arias Sanchez noted that attaining true and lasting peace was not only a permanent cause that took the work of many people of courage. He talked about collaboration across international boundaries that could rise above separate differences to create unified answers. Peace, he said, is a never-ending process, the work of many decisions by many people in many countries. It is an attitude, a way of life, a way of solving problems and resolving conflicts. And it cannot ignore differences and overlook common interests. It requires us to work and to live together. Today, this afternoon, I want to talk about a single word, a word that I believe is a powerful determinant of success in our world today, success in any career field and in any endeavor, and a word that should be held in high esteem by all of us who share the profession of public sector service. And that word is collaboration. There is raw power in collaboration that, when harnessed, can be the driver of success. It can combine individual ideas to create community successes. It takes each of us out of a personal perspective to create more global understanding. It makes an individual's work a part of a solution that can make a significant difference. In today's networked world, an incredible world that we live in, virtually everyone is connected, whether you want to be or not. Today, 750 million of your friends, your closest friends, are on Facebook. None were there a few years ago. In 5 years, Google's Eric Schmidt says Chinese language web pages will dominate search returns. In 2011, 20 million joined Google's new platform in a matter of weeks. By 2013, 2 years away, 1 billion mobile devices will connect to the internet. The rate of change is heart-stopping, and it is rapidly increasing. Plan to do it alone? Plan to go it alone? Think again. Can't happen. 50 years ago, the visionary Marsh McLuhan foresaw today's global village, where it's impossible for someone in Tunisia to tweet a demonstration without someone in Cairo catching wind of revolution. We live in an age where change is fast, but none of us moves quite as fast as change. Sometimes it seems we want the fast fixes of the digital world to solve slow-moving disasters that have been with us for a long time. Dangle the right incentives in front of teachers? Surely student scores will rise, won't they? Add more cops? Surely crime will fall. Layer more regulation on food growers? Surely our dinner tables will be safer. What? No app for that? No quick solution? If only. Even in a networked world, schools stay broken. Financial systems stay stacked. Tails, I win. For rich guys, and heads, you lose. For Main Street. Poor people die hungry and broken. From New York to Rio to Mogadishu. Being connected is no silver bullet. Not when the move forward runs into go it alone, no one does it better mindsets. You've all experienced that. Those are powerful headwinds few can take on alone. In the network world, no one needs to. Where everyone is connected, the game changer is collaboration. Reaching across boundaries, often abetted by technology that connects us all. Collaboration unleashes the power of the many to do together what none can do alone. Collaboration is ultimately about people, about us. If we're only about technology, the one with the best toys would always win. Technology can tip change and certainly speed it up. But in the network world, with change moving fast, success depends more than ever on having the right people saying yes and doing yes. That takes a new mindset, one that says we can achieve more together than we can alone. A mindset that looks across boundaries of departments, companies, nations, and sees people as partners and change as opportunity, not threat. I have found through a lifetime of experience, most of it in the public sector, that if you view your personal daily challenges as so separate and unique from all those faced by all those others before you or around you, you fail to engage the powerful ideas of others who see the world differently, and you unplug yourself from the energy source created by a connectivity that can literally change the world. Today, a few hours ago, at the City Hall, 3 women were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize because they individually were changing the world. With that as a backdrop as well as foundation, I'll also tell you that the good news is that we live in incredible times, extraordinary times. And the bad news is that this is a time when we also face incredible and seemingly sometimes insurmountable challenges. As it states on the website associated with this 10th anniversary summit, all around the globe, public sector leaders are innovating. It says that you are exploring new ways of doing things in order to cope with the challenges you face, and they are many in today's world. And that these solutions have one factor in common. They are all based on connecting people in radically new ways. That is collaboration. You, by definition, as public servants, have the vocation to serve others. You are professionals in the public sector, no matter the segment, who share a very important foundational element of our life's work and professional passion. You work for the common good. You are charged with that duty and responsibility to others. Pursuit of the common good can be accelerated through collaboration among the other professionals we can bring to the table, that you can bring to the table. And in this interconnected world, that table has few physical boundaries, with the exception of those that we ourselves might erect. When we step outside ourselves and look beyond our personal limitations, when we connect with others that do not share our same point of view or experiences, we can create new approaches that empower our citizens to transform our society. Much like you, it has been my good fortune and honor to have served in the public sector for so many years, searching for solutions to support the common good every day of my adult life. Every day of my adult life has been one of significance, as every day of my adult life, much the same as so many of you, actions I took, if they were correct, positively affected the lives of thousands, if not millions of others. My journey has taken me to different locations with very different challenges. Commissioner of the New York City Police Department, Chief of the Los Angeles Police Department, and earlier as Commissioner of the Boston Police, and now as Chairman of Kroll, the global risk consultancy leader. My service to others has been primarily in law enforcement, and in that effort of law enforcement, in a democracy, the first obligation of government is public safety. That is the platform upon which all the other benefits of a democratic society are built. The columns of health, education, welfare, even free speech can shake and lose strength. We see it every day around the world as countries struggle to become democracies, as democracies struggle to maintain themselves. If the obligation of government is to ensure public safety, it is imperative that it not be tampered with or damaged. While this may sound very macro, very general, public safety, my experience, has been that it is actually very micro and is created and maintained at the neighborhood level. I have policed the two largest cities in America, but they are cities of neighborhoods. And no two neighborhoods in those two very large and diverse cities ever had the same set of problems at the same time. But for many, many decades in my country, my predecessors sought to police those cities and those neighborhoods as if they were one monolithic entity, and they failed dramatically. Success can only be built upon a foundation of collaboration. When I was a young police sergeant in Boston, way back when, the 1970s, joined the Boston Police Department in 1970, 23 years of age, just back from the Vietnam War, fulfilled a lifelong dream to be a cop, to walk the beat. I was early on, as a young sergeant, a young whiz kid, if you will, 1975, given the assignment of improving policing efforts and reducing crime in a very difficult policing district of Boston, which was struggling through the dynamic urban changes of the 1970s. Many of you may remember that the economists, all those who studied our society, were telling us that cities were over, cities were dead. The new frontier was going to be the suburbs, and cities were decaying and were on decline in the 1970s when I joined the Boston Police Department. The area that I was working on was a police district in the Fenway area of Boston. It was also in an area that encompassed many of the universities, sports complexes, museums, and churches, significant institutions, and cultural icons in Boston. Those of you who have visited Boston, Boston Fenway Park, Boston University, Museum of Fine Arts, Commonwealth Avenue with its stately mansions, the public gardens, in the South End, the poor, the disenfranchised, the public housing. It was a city within a city beset with all the problems of that time: crime, urban decay, and neglect. But this area, although suffering through a prolonged period of urban decline and social decay, and the signs of decay were certainly their high crime rates and increasing disorder and fear. But what was interesting about this area was that they were seeking solutions. They were not writing it off. And these challenges for which they were seeking solutions were literally written on the wall, from the graffiti on the buildings to the refuse that you couldn't miss when walking the streets that city government had failed to collect. What we did to work on these challenges was to first bring various community institutions and community members together and sit them down in one room, something that had not been done by the police. We formed the Boston Fenway program, a truly collaborative effort, and I convinced police leadership at that time to assign me, a young sergeant, as the police resource to design an overall plan to deal with crime in this area. I grew up in cities. I love cities. I live in a city. Cities are what the world is all about, but they do not exist successfully without collaboration. This was the first time that the Boston police had gone to the community to hear from the community. So no one, least of all me, knew really what to expect. I would come to community meetings, young whiz kid sergeant, armed with all my data. I had the violent crime data. I had all the information about what was going on in their neighborhood. In these meetings, I would be in front, presenting my charts and my graphs, explaining how we, the police, were responding to their concerns. But when I'd open it up to questions and answers, the community didn't want to talk about the major crimes that I was interested in. In fact, they were often unaware of many of the statistics and crimes I was talking about, because most of them had never made the headlines or the newscasts of that day. What they wanted to talk about, and this was a revelation for me that changed my life and my view of policing, was their concern about the broken windows, about quality of life issues, about things that created fear every day in their lives. Because even in the highest crime area of Boston, New York, or Los Angeles during the 70s and 80s, the chances of being the victim of a serious crime in all those cities was about 1 in 10, even in the worst times. But every day in those cities and other American cities, and I dare say cities around the world, every day they faced things that created fear, and like a cancer, because they were not being dealt with successfully, being paid attention to by government or the police, they were destroying those neighborhoods. In those neighborhoods, their decline were destroying cities. Quality of life issues, the minor things that we, the police, were not paying any attention to, such as the prostitution, such as the graffiti, such as the aggressive begging, the abandoned cars that seemingly were never removed from the neighborhood. I was struck by how we, the police, talked about major crime, while neighborhood residents were really concerned with all those quality of life issues. They wanted us, the police, to tackle the problems they encountered every day, the events that define the quality of their lives. As I listened to the community and collaborated with them on solutions, because the idea was to work together as force multipliers, we created positive change by focusing on what were the most fear-provoking elements in the neighborhood. That revelation around community focus and collaboration shaped my work for the rest of my life, and indeed shapes the work of most American police departments today in America. Police don't function effectively by ignoring the people they serve, even on what appears to be on the surface very small matters. I took this and was able to take it to the next level in the biggest soapbox in America, New York City, working with Mayor Rudy Giuliani upon his election in 1994. New York City of the 1990s was a very fearful place. It was one of the most dangerous major cities in the world. 700,000 of its citizens had been victimized by serious crime. 2,240 murders, over 7,000 people shot on the streets of New York. It was a city that people were living in fear, businesses were leaving, tourists were not coming. As commissioner, I introduced a tough policy called zero tolerance and broken windows. Officers began not only focusing on serious crime, but for the first time in 25 years, officers began cracking down on drunks in public, aggressive beggars, bicyclists who made the sidewalks dangerous for pedestrians, and the squeegee pests who stepped into intersections to clean windshields, the ubiquitous squeegee pest, who had become so well known around the world that you could not get onto the island of Manhattan without going through a phalanx of them at the entrances to Manhattan, demanding money to wash your window. And if you didn't, you're likely to have your car keyed or scratched or have invective shouted at you. It had become so ubiquitous that I used to joke, take the torch out of the Statue of Liberty's hands and replace it with a squeegee, because that really was the welcoming sign to New York. Broken windows didn't just remove these public nuisances. It improved the quality of daily neighborhood life and engendered respect for the law, for the police, and for a civil society. As we built a reservoir of trust with the public, the rates for major crime also fell dramatically. In New York City, crime has now gone down for 21 straight years. In the midst of this economic recession, it is still going down. Crime on the subways, where I began my New York policing career in 1990, it was thought to be one of the more dangerous parts of New York City. It has also gone down for 21 straight years. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Tipping Point, the origin of that book was in fact the decline in fare evasion on the New York City subway system, something that he had heard about, saw for himself firsthand, and then wrote an article in New Yorker magazine about it, and then that inspired him for the whole concept of tipping point. As we, the police, built a reservoir of trust with the public, the rates for major crimes also fell dramatically. It was community policing, partnership, problem solving, prevention. Police with community, working on the problems that the community was identifying as their priority, what was creating fear in their lives, and prevention. Policing in the 70s and 80s in my country had moved away from, had indeed in fact been excused from, preventing crime. Because our society, and I dare say the societies of most of the countries from which you come, basically felt in the 70s and 80s that crime was caused by the economy, demographics, unemployment, the weather. Crime was not caused by that, although we believed that for 25 years. Crime is caused by individuals or groups of individuals who are criminals, who consciously break the law, human behavior, or by people in a moment of passion commit a crime, or who, not knowing that a certain thing is prohibited in a community, unintentionally break the law. The role of police in a democratic society is to control behavior, but that role has to be fulfilled constitutionally. Can't break the law to enforce it. It has to be fulfilled compassionately. You're dealing with people. And it has to be filled consistently. Rich neighborhood, poor neighborhood, you put police where the crime, the serious fear of crime is occurring, and you prioritize addressing those issues in rich communities or poor. Merely fixing the broken windows, however, will not solve every challenge you face or create the lasting common and public good for which you and the public sector, and which I, when I was there, personally endeavor. What I will tell you is that this realization for our focus all started with a collaborative effort among people interested in a common cause. And with us, the police, willing to listen. If we had not listened, if we had not collaborated, we would have continued to fail, and crime rates would have continued to rise, and cities would have continued to decline. My overall point is that working together and building confidence with the community through exhibiting leadership in addressing small issues as well as large translated to much bigger payoffs. 40% decline overall in crime in the United States in the 1990s, and in its major cities, crime continues to decline. Gandhi, the great civil rights leader, said, and I paraphrase, "To create change, you must become the change." Moving forward takes embracing new ways and change, but it requires leadership that is willing to be held accountable, willing to listen, willing to collaborate with the community, with government, with other leadership that is also willing to understand that none of us have all the answers. This takes leaders, and yes, public sector professionals, who understand that the more partners that contribute, the better. The ideas that can help overcome limitations and hurdle challenges. Inclusion. The more people in the tent, the better, rather than having them outside the tent. We talked about that yesterday, cathedrals and bazaars. I had the opportunity in the 1970s to be exposed to the beginnings of a concept, a philosophy of policing, community policing as I've referenced, that later took hold completely in my country. President Bill Clinton embraced it in 1994. The Omnibus Crime Bill, federal government in partnership with state and local communities, 100,000 more police, the prioritization, responding to the fear of the American public, the #1 concern in 1994, and we tipped it and we changed it. With community policing, we began measuring success not by just responding to crime, but more importantly by our ability to prevent crime. We had it all wrong for almost 30 years. Police role is to prevent crime first and foremost, secondly to respond when crime does occur. But the goal has to be to prevent it in the first place. And also our willingness to be held accountable for crime. Through community policing, we were able to work with the individual neighborhoods, the individual political leaders, and to respond to specific priorities, needs, and concerns. We could not be successful in these efforts, however, without breaking down the bureaucratic silos that existed. This is a public sector audience. You know what I talk of. The bureaucratic silos, department to department, within departments, within cities. I know you will nod in appreciation when I say that organizations oftentimes do not work well together. They don't collaborate. They live in silos created by their own experiences. Some even live in the cathedrals that were referenced yesterday. To help us break these down, while I was in Boston, New York, and later in Los Angeles, we brought a new transparency to our work to help us bust silos and create collaborative efforts. Through the power of transparency and a willingness to be held accountable to our constituents, our communities. This was driven by the award-winning revolutionary CompStat process, the NYPD accountability and management system in its 4 components: timely accurate intelligence, rapid response to that intelligence, effective tactics to deal with what had been identified, and relentless follow-up. CompStat, in many respects, I can give you 2 examples of it in real-world terms. A doctor, you go to the doctor, he does a full body scan, timely accurate intelligence, your annual exam. Identifies that you have a melanoma, a basal cell. He rapidly responds to that identified problem that, if unaddressed, may take your life. He uses effective tactics, chemotherapy, radiation, maybe surgery. And then for the next several years, he relentlessly follows up with you to make sure it's not coming back. CompStat is effectively what we do in dealing with the practice of medicine. In policing in the 70s and 80s, American policing, and I'll speak to that, we didn't use our crime statistics to identify our problems. We used them to report to the federal government so that the federal government twice a year could report on how crime was going in the United States of America. We were not using the data that we had effectively to identify and address the growing problems that we were experiencing. CompStat allowed us to collaborate more effectively within our own organization. Everybody in the meeting sharing information, different neighborhoods, different problems, but sometimes there were shared problems. It allowed us to collaborate with our political leadership, with our individual communities, by prioritizing our assignment of resources, and most importantly, helped us create a focus for our actions and measurements of our success and failures. After all, you can't fix what you can't measure, but you can expect what you inspect. Let me connect the dots here, if I may, if you will. But while CompStat was at its core a technology, that technology became a system of transparent collaboration with other government and local entities that drove change by working together. That maximized our limited resources, that created new transparency, so our constituents from City Hall to the neighborhoods we served could see what we were doing and how well we were doing it. What you have there is the face page of the Los Angeles Police Department website. Almost $1 million of private sector money that I raised while I was police chief in Los Angeles to pay for that system because the city did not have that money. You go to that website and it is totally transparent as to what the Los Angeles Police Department is doing every day. Gives you crime statistics to the day. You can punch in your address and see everything that's going on in your neighborhood, who's wanted for what crime, what problems are occurring. It allows you through the web to report a crime immediately. It is an example of where American policing went and continues to go, a very vivid example of where we went and where they continue to go. Through timely, accurate intelligence, we evolved responses to put cops on the dots. And as we plotted the dots, the locations where crimes were being committed, we put cops on those dots with effective tactics that eventually reduced the pattern, eliminated that particular crime problem. Put it up on a map, identify a pattern or trend when there are 3 or 4 incidents instead of 30 or 40 or 50. Put your cops on there very quickly, and you will, like a doctor dealing with your cancer, mitigate, usually successfully and impactfully, on that identified problem. What this also helped us to do was create success by optimizing our resources, force multiplication, so that even in the period of recession, economic downturn, and with limited resources, we could focus on the concerns, neighborhood by neighborhood. But we also did not stop there. The element that helped us move to a better level was relentless follow-up, that we effectively kept going back to make sure it was not coming back. And this is also a system that could be utilized with a lot of resources or with scarce resources. In New York City, I had 38,000 cops. We had benefited from the expansion of the police force that things had gotten so bad that politically, the mayors Giuliani and Dinkins were able to get money to grow the force to 38,000. As those dots were appearing, I could literally, throughout the city, put cops on the dots right away. In the 2 years I was police commissioner, in all 75 police precincts, in each of those years, overall crime went down 10% in each over 10% in each precinct. There was not a precinct where crime went up during that period of time. Los Angeles, where I went in 2002, very different story. 9,000 officers to police a huge city, 480 square miles. Police in Los Angeles were spread so thin that as I drove around the city as the new police chief, when I would see the black and white police cars that were so scarce, I used to refer to them as sightings, that I had a sighting of a police vehicle in the streets of Los Angeles. But over those 7-year period of time that I was chief of police and my successor, Charlie Beck, over the last 2 years, over those 9 years, in the midst of the worst recession since the Great Depression, with unemployment at 14% in that city, 5 years before those double-digit numbers hit the rest of the United States, crime has gone down every year, and this year continues to go down, even with those limited resources, because we collaborated with mayor, city council, community. We used technology. We shared ideas with the feds. We shared ideas with everybody. We got everybody into the tent. This has similarities to combating the global challenge of terrorism. We have a saying in the United States, in my country, that homeland security is really about hometown security. This is the idea that, much like addressing our city crime problems in the 1990s, through collaboration between community and police at the neighborhood level, we can move forward to address a bigger challenge of dealing with the new crime, the new fear, terrorism, which will be with us, unfortunately, and our children and their children for the rest of their lives. It is here, and it is here to stay, unfortunately. Since 9/11, of the approximately 100 attempts to commit terrorist acts in the United States, almost 3/4 of those were detected and deterred by local police and local community residents. Think of it, the billions of dollars that we spend on the national technology, that in 75 of those 100 instances, local police, local residents see something, say something, partnership, collaboration, prevention. Several successes in terms of terrorist acts that occurred, but many, many failures, and those failures were prevented by collaboration. Once again, the collaboration with the community at the local level, where neighborhoods work with local police in partnership, and in turn work with other agencies at the national level that share a unity of purpose, this form of collaboration can help bring a more global sense of safety and security. In closing, allow me to twist a common expression a bit. Remember, you get what you work for. Remember that you achieve what you are willing to collaborate for. Remember that you can create new levels of success and successes that never plateau in the public service sector when you bring others together to work for the common good. We all face in this these turbulent times, scarce public dollars. And while prioritization is absolutely essential, collaboration can help us combine limited resources to create a much greater positive force for change. This means we must demand inclusion to ensure we are concentrating on the right problems, the problems that are having the greatest impact on our constituencies and our countries. This is pushed to the next level when we demand transparency and truly believe in accountability. This requires us to collaborate and partner in new ways and be willing to explain why we're doing what we are doing, how we are doing it, and when we are going to do it. This will require our leadership and a relentless willingness to teach others, to learn from others, to demonstrate to others, to have others demonstrate to us who may not agree with us about the power of collaboration, and patiently moving forward to create solutions that, if they make sense in a neighborhood, can be applied to the larger questions that face nations. And while I submit this will not be as easy as the challenges, and while I submit that this will not be easy, as the challenges we face are not simple, and while we will stumble at times, as the path is not without potholes, some as big as the Grand Canyon, and while we'll be frustrated at times, as there are others who will count their successes by watching our failures, I also submit that there is no more important group to create a better future than those gathered here today in this room, and the tens and hundreds of thousands like you in the public sector, those whose vocation is to serve others, the professionals and leaders in the public sector whose life's work, leadership, and professional passion is dedicated to providing for the common good. And finally, drawing from my new book, Collaborate or Perish, that will be published along with my co-author, Zach Tuman, a Harvard professor, in January 2012, let me share with you what I believe are 8 tests of readiness about what I've just talked about how to prepare and how to implement. Number 1, have a vision of a better day and a better way to energize people around you. It conjures a world others want to work toward and support. It captures their imagination and their passion. I had a vision in the 1990s that police could do something about crime. I had political leaders, Rudy Giuliani, a mayor in a city, Bill Clinton, a president in a country, who also shared that vision. And we were able to surround ourselves with many others who also believed, after 25 years of failure, that it was time for success, and we succeeded. Number 2, right-size the way forward. Make it doable. Deliver value fast, not all of it, but enough to prove to all, we know how to do this. The idea is setting goals. The NYPD had been achieving in the early 90s 1% and 2% declines against crime. I set a goal of 10%. Many did not believe it could be achieved. We achieved 12%. We right-sized the problem. Number 3, create a platform, a physical or virtual clearing that collaborators can find, get to, trust, and use. That's where you share knowledge, insight, and assets, and take steps together. That was CompStat, the platform. Precinct commanders, deputy chiefs, assistant chiefs, police commissioner, district attorney, probation, parole, all of us in a room talking about crime, talking about what to do with it from our individual perspectives, and collectively and collaboratively, we began the New York Miracle. And the New York Miracle begat the American miracle of that 40% decline in crime in the 1990s. Number 4, make it pay. We're human. We like to be rewarded for our successes. Collaboration requires there be something in it for everyone, whether it's glory and honor, money and power, latitude and position, or a chance to do the job they showed up to do. When I polled as part of the cultural diagnostic of the NYPD and then later in the LAPD, the men and women of those departments who had been very frustrated by their inability to get crime down, in their inability to function as police officers, what they had signed on to do. In both departments, the number one thing they wanted to do was to make their city safe, to lock up the bad guys who were terrorizing that city. But they had been prevented by bureaucratic leadership that either didn't trust them or used them ineffectively by not putting the cops on the dots. We found a way with the LAPD and the NYPD for them to buy in where there was something in it for them. It wasn't the monetary reward. It was the idea that we are doing something of significance. Whatever currency, collaboration needs to pay for those who will be with you on the journey. And it is a journey. Very seldom is it a one-time success or a one-time failure. It is a journey. Number 5, have the right people with you. Many of you remember Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. Get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus, and get the right people in the right seats. NYPD, LAPD, surround yourself with those who share the vision, those who can't share it, those who are incapable of meeting it, find other things for them to do, and then move people around so they can maximize their contribution and their sense of satisfaction. Number 6, deliver on performance. Collaboration can promise a way better, faster, or cheaper, or more efficient, equitable, or effective. Whatever the promise, that's the performance collaboration must deliver. Number 7, mind your political support. Stay in its headlamps and ensure you have what you need to deliver on the promise. My case, 1994, I didn't stay in the headlamps of my mayor at the time. I was there in New York for 2 years. 2002, Los Angeles, I stayed in those headlamps every step of the way. And we had 7 years of continuing success that now continues moving forward. The marriage and the collaboration between, in the government sector certainly, the political leadership and the operational leadership is essential. Number 8, and lastly, you must have the passion and the playbook to lead. In policing, I believe I had the passion. I believe that was recognized by many who ended up working with me, whose ideas I got to put into place, whose ideas I helped to collaborate with others and share with others so that collectively we succeeded. I didn't succeed. I succeeded through them and they succeeded through me. Whether from above, the middle, the side, or below, leadership in a collaboration helps make it pay for everyone. You help everyone achieve together what none of us can accomplish alone. Collaboration, the way of the future, the way forward. Thank you.